Okay, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kalpesh Patel, and I'm super excited to interact with you guys as always in our consistent commitment to elevating each and every person that attends these events. And so, a little bit about myself for those that are new here for the first time today. I have spent my entire life in the world of, if you like, selling, entrepreneurship, and business. And I've never actually worked for somebody else. So that's a world that's foreign to me. However, I have worked with hundreds of thousands of people around the world who have worked for other people. And I've been blessed to have learnt so many things from so many people globally as these interactions have allowed me to do so. I've traveled many, many countries over the last 3, 4 decades. I've met in live audiences hundreds of thousands of people, and I've been blessed to have impacted many more lives as that ripple effect goes out. And one of the most passionate things for me is when I learn about people from different locations around the world. I like to connect all the dots and find the common threads. And what I really love doing is then sharing them back with people around the world to just show how kind of how common, not common, but how yeah, how consistent our ways are as humans. Doesn't matter which language, which background, which side of the equator you're on, none of that matters. There are local, if you like, tiny, tiny differences, but fundamentally at the core, human beings are human beings everywhere. And it's fascinating how consistent that is, right? So, as much as we might think we're different, and we often focus on our differences, the fact is that our commonness is much more deeply ingrained in our DNA than our differences. And so, as I like to share the learnings, I want to talk about a common occurrence that happens all over the world. Guess what? Every human being on the planet struggles with procrastination. And every human being on the planet struggles with fear in some uh, way, shape, or form. All right. So these are things that are not unique to you. They're not unique to your, if you like, place of origin, your parents, your country, your language. They're not unique to any of that. These are common challenges that humans face. All right. Now, now you might see somebody that doesn't look like they're facing those challenges, but I promise you they are. Some of us are just what they call highly functional within these challenges, and others are highly dysfunctional within these challenges. And for the most part, most people just get on with it without even being aware of these, that there's anything to do with these challenges, right? Most people spend their entire life in fear or their entire life procrastinating. And they still get through, right? Everyone gets through life. It's not about, judging. It's about improving. And so, how can we give ourselves the edge? So, if we look at, and again, I love learning from, if you like, the scale of humans elevating and evolving and taking advantage of, knowledge that is available to everybody, but very few actually take time to study. Then I want to know, what is it that has us procrastinate? And if we just study this for a second, why do we put things on hold? Why do we put, some of us are committed to certain things, but we say we'll get round to it tomorrow. We'll start next week. We'll come, one day, the time isn't right now. Once the children grow up, then I'll do it. Whatever it is, there's lots of different flavors, right? I'm just doing this for now. I'll change it later, whether it's a job that you're doing or a business that you're doing. You find a lot of reasons not to make the change, not to make the transition. So one of the things is human beings are led by their comfort zone. Just make a note of this, and you'll notice where it shows up everywhere on the planet. We are led by our comfort zone. All right. So then it's a case of, okay, that's fine. And great, because human beings should be comfortable as they go through this thing called life. It's already challenging enough. So we shouldn't have to make it any uh, more challenging than life already is. But what if we could overcome the times when it's important not to procrastinate, right? There are certain things that compound and create a negative impact in our life because we're procrastinating. I'll give simple examples. A very common one that I talk about is around finance. It's really easy to spot it around finance. Every human knows simple equations. What I'm going to talk about now, you don't need a degree in maths to figure this out. Every human on the planet knows that if you spend more than you make, you're in trouble. Everyone knows that. If you spend more than you make, you end up with a negative number. That's not empowering you going forward. What starts off as a very, very small problem compounds over time into what could seem like an impossible problem to solve. And no problems are impossible to solve. That's a whole advantage of being human, that once we make the shift, we can solve all problems. But the longer you delay, the longer you procrastinate on solving it, the bigger the climb, the steeper the climb. You're just creating what starts out as a molehill becomes a mountain. All right. So if you study most people, they're hugely in debt. Debt means you spent more than you made. Simple equation, right? Like I said, it's not a degree in maths you need. It's just a little bit of common sense approach. So debt equals spending more than you make. So what's the opposite of that? Spending less than you make equals profit, equals advantage. And the compound effect of that habit over time is phenomenal. These would be the people that are not living day to day, week to week, or mouth to mouth. These are people that have, perhaps over time, some savings for sure. That's the low hanging fruit advantage of spending less than you make. But when they've saved enough, you can now invest. So they have assets, right? Rather than liabilities, they collect assets, whereas people that spend more collect liabilities. Loans, credit card debts, borrowing money from friends and family, etc. Getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the hole of debt versus building a stronger and stronger and stronger foundation over time. All right. And it's interesting because what I'm saying here is not new. It's not like we had a eureka moment as humanity in the last 50 years or 100 years. We're talking about this is how people have lived forever. It's and when you think about that from a logic perspective, and I often say this, humans don't make logical decisions, we make emotional decisions, right? Logically, why would you do that to yourself? Why would any human put themselves in a situation where they have this habit of spending more than they make, only to create, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years down the line, a horrific financial situation? And then they get stressed out. How did this happen? I'll tell you how it happened. Look back in the rearview mirror of your financial decisions. That's how it happened. And so these are some of the basic kind of consequences of procrastination, putting things off. All right. So everyone knows, but they don't do it. If we talk about same with health, right? So again, everyone's guilty of it. We all know that if we want to be in a better, if you like, state of health, then a couple of easy, low-hanging fruit wins. Eat less than you burn. Simple equation. Eat less than you burn. If you do this, then you don't end up obese. If you eat more than you burn, just equations, right? Guess what happens? Doesn't happen overnight. It's not suddenly you wake up on a Monday morning, Friday you were fine, and Monday morning you wake up and you're 3 times the weight. That's not what happens. It's a compound effect, consistent. It's a result of a habit that you've been procrastinating on, right? The habit is eat less than you burn. That's the one you need. The one you choose is eat more than you burn. And the compound effect is that by the time you're 40 or 50, you're double the size, triple the size even sometimes. Doesn't happen overnight, creeps in, right? So again, notice in all of these situations, if we're awake and aware, we spot it in the journey. And oftentimes we're able to grab a hold of it and shift the habit in time. So we don't pay the ultimate price. It's much harder when you're double the weight or triple the weight of your natural, if you like, optimal weight, right? It's much harder to shake it off because the habits are so deeply ingrained than if you catch it along the way. So I'll give an example. I know that my ideal weight, if you like, is around, and it's always been consistent for the last couple of decades, between 75 to 78 kilos. Very little variation. If it ever goes above that, immediately I know I need to take some actions and I bring it back into the zone. And as a result of that, I've just maintained that, right? So it's not as difficult to keep it within the zone as it is once it runs away from you to bring it all the way back. That's where it becomes overwhelming and impossible and too far gone. Beautiful thing, like I said earlier on, nothing's impossible. Humans turn situations around all the time, the day they wake up and the day they get committed to a better outcome. All of us have the power to shift our habits, to shift our routines. Whatever it is that's not served us, we can identify it and flip it, flip the switch. Finances, health, same thing. Same thing with relationships, right? We put it off, don't we? We know we need to pay attention. Well, it could be that, you know, there are issues, challenges that you ignore with your partner, perhaps, and you put it off and you put it off. You don't talk about it, you don't address it, you don't deal with it. And all of that starts to build up inside. And over time, guess what? Animosity starts to grow. The weeds of judgment get stronger. The noise in the mind gets louder. And now the same person that when they used to do things and you were like, oh, suddenly they do the same things and you're like, ugh, right? That's because you haven't handled your relationship consistently over time. You've ignored stuff. You haven't dealt with stuff. You've shoved it under the carpet. You've put it off. I'll deal with it next week, next month, next year, next decade. And then it's too late, right? Not too late, but it's like you've ultimately just stacked life against yourself when you do these things. Much harder to undo later than earlier. The earlier you deal with things moving forward, the easier the journey ahead is. So having those conversations early on that a lot of people find uncomfortable, maybe, the quicker you have them, the easier it is to move forward. Getting aligned, getting clear. And if it's not a match, move. But early, rather than pretending, only one day to wake up and be sick and tired of the person that you're next to and going, how did I end up here? It didn't happen overnight. You didn't suddenly wake up one day and there was a problem next to you. No, that problem grew because you ignored things, signs, signals. You didn't react. You didn't respond. You didn't take early action. And so that's all this is about. It's raising awareness in any area that you delay stuff, that you put stuff off. Same with jobs. How does somebody start in a job? And you hear this all the time. They start in their job, early 20s, and they're keen to climb to the top of the ladder. And a decade later, they're still at the same desk. Not possible in my world. In my world, as an entrepreneur, it is impossible to be sat behind the same desk and nothing changes for 10 years because you can't afford to when you're self-employed. You better hustle, right? You might get away with a few weeks, maybe even a few months of zero. But, the longer you are on zero, the longer you're sat not moving forward, the bigger the price you're paying when you're self-employed. What happens is when you're in a employed situation, that salary is comfortable. Your comfort zone is very comfortable to take the salary and not push yourself, not challenge yourself, not grow, not reach for the next promotion, not ask for the next promotion, not look for the next promotion. And then what do we do? It's comfortable sitting in that desk. We're familiar with the workload. We know what we need to do. The mindset is if I can just go in, do my as little as possible and get my paycheck, I'm happy. You're temporarily happy with the paycheck, But ultimately, you're going to pay a very, very big price because you can afford to earn less money when you're single in your 20s. But as time moves on, if your mindset doesn't shift, then your paycheck doesn't shift either. And when you're 30, that same paycheck isn't going to cut it. When you're 40, if you're in a relationship and maybe you've got some family, you're growing your family, goodness, you're really going to feel the pain of not having taken action earlier. Can you see how it works? And so, again, understanding how we as humans operate. Who are the ones that manage to overcome this stuff? The ones that are conscious, the ones that are awake, the ones that are present. You with me? These are the little adjustments you need to make. Be present. Take the temperature of your life right across the board, regularly, consistently, ongoingly. Just keep taking the temperature. Relationships, finances, well-being, whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're up to, career, take the temperature. Are you actively participating or are you just a recipient of your circumstances? Big difference. One is sitting still in the comfort zone of how it is. The other one is moving forward proactively with purpose. Navigating. One is just being pushed along. The other one's navigating left, right, making adjustments, right? The power of this, I often use this example. Did you know, and some of you might have heard this right along the way, an airplane is off target 99% of the journey. So when an airplane leaves one airport and heads to the next airport, 99% of the time it's off course and it needs to be adjusted all the time. All the time. In the old days, it was adjusted by pilots. Today, it's adjusted by technology. But in both cases, it needs constant adjustment. If you just set the airplane to fly in a certain direction and then you don't make the adjustments along the way, you'd end up in a completely different location based on the temperature, the wind, the environment. So if you didn't pay attention, you'd never get to where you wanted to get to. Life's like that. If you don't pay attention, you are never going to get anywhere you want to go. You can want to go there as much as you want, but it needs constant adjustment, daily adjustment, regular adjustment, checking in. Where are we at? Where are we heading? How do we improve? So this is the difference, right? What can I do? What value can I add to my journey so that I can end up in a better destination? And what we find at the root of all of this stuff, most of the time, is some kind of a fear. That's why we chase the comfort zone. Our fear of the unknown is something we don't want to face. We don't want to face an unknown future, trying something new, taking a risk, taking a chance. We're too scared. Now, the fear, and I heard a beautiful acronym in my early learning days by Zig Ziglar, or that's where I heard it first. The acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. It's easy to read a statement like that. It's easy to read an acronym like that. But what does it actually mean? False evidence appearing real. Humans don't know the difference between dreams and waking state. In the same way, we often cannot tell the difference of when fear is running the show or power is running the show. And what we do is we make decisions based on our false interpretations of circumstances. We make up stories in our head all the time, and we make them often way worse than they actually are. So we put negative connotations to change. Like, what if this? What if I change this and this happens? What if I change this and this doesn't happen? We always look at the worst case scenario of change. We look at the worst possible outcome, and that paralyzes us straight back into the comfort zone. What if I don't find a better partner? What if I don't get the promotion? What if I can't find a better job? All these questions start kicking in and it stops us in our tracks. All right. Now, understanding this stuff can take a little bit of time. All right. You're not going to get it in, uh, you know, a 1 minute video on Instagram or TikTok, but it's consistency over time. If you input great stuff in, eventually it's inevitable. You'll start producing great stuff out. Again, another acronym that many of you have most likely come across, which is GIGO, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. But I flip that, greatness in, greatness out. We choose. And it's not easy. It is not easy to show up every day as the student. But that's what it requires, being the student, right? Consistently, being open to learning, open to improving, receiving new input. And then again, in today's world as well, more importantly than ever, in today's world, the amount of nonsense that is out there, what we call fake news, false news, and that's only going to increase. The volume of that is going to get more and more intense over time with the creation of AI and now that taking grip and more momentum. Like, really, what do you consume? What information do you believe? What are you studying? I have friends that study stuff. It really throws them in a spin. They jump into rabbit holes that they can never get out of. All right. All sorts of theories about stuff. And they're unable to get themselves out of it. They're unable to unravel. Pull yourself back out. Get back, get grounded again. Get back to your core. Deep down, each of us, by being human, are already endowed with greatness. Trust ourselves more. So many people are externally referenced. External, they're looking for external validation. They're looking for external information, external input, right? But they rely on it so much because they don't trust themselves. So finding your center, your core, the godliness inside of you, being in touch with that, and then go in search, seek wisdom, seek universal knowledge, seek universal wisdom, wisdom of the ages, as it's called, right? This stuff's been around forever. Nobody invents anything new when it comes to human power, human potential. Nobody. There's nothing new. Nothing. Whatever was written 10,000 years ago is still valid today to humans. Now, somebody might paint it in a different color, put a different sound on it, but ultimately the fundamentals are the fundamentals. So we know what they are. They're not difficult to access, but we get distracted oftentimes because we doubt ourselves, we get distracted and follow a path that only just eats up time of your 70 or 80 or 90 or 100 years that you're on planet Earth, if you're lucky, of those few short years. For me, I don't have time for distractions. You could do the same. Don't make time for distractions. Your time is too precious. So make sure that whatever greatness you're putting in is the universal greatness that works for any human and every human on the planet. And then the other thing for me is whatever you choose to do as you start creating your path going forward, make sure that it's something that you commit to for the duration of the journey. Because another thing that wastes a lot of time is experimentation. Look at, like, if we look at diets, right? How many people that are obese will go on a diet every now and again? Why? You're wasting time when you do that. Diets don't work. They never have, they never will. Diets don't work. Lifestyle changes work. Diets have never worked, right? That's why you hear the yo-yo stories all the time. Oh yeah, I lost 50 pounds and now I've got 60 pounds more and same old stories. So it's got to be deeper than the surface level stuff. So it's not about changing your diet rather than changing your approach to food. Can you see that? Diet is temporary. Shifting your approach, your understanding, your knowledge is eternal. It's not confined by time. I've not had a fizzy drink in 30 plus years. People find that really weird. But for me, it was like a really low hanging fruit. It was an easy win. Something that I used to do every day, something that I used to enjoy all the time. And I thought if I knock that one thing out, the impact, the compound impact of that over the decades, it's a no-brainer. You're talking what, 20 odd spoons of sugar, 20, 25, 30 spoons of sugar in a little can. Give yourself a little bit more respect, right? And it's an easy win. And there are lots of easy wins in the same way. So think of it beyond giving something up for now, but rather replace it with, find the alternatives, replace it, and make that the new habit. And just stick with that going forward, right? So understanding how fear and procrastination are tied, they're married together, then, knowing your fears will help you to overcome why you procrastinate. Because people know the stuff, right? So, why do we procrastinate? Fear. What are you scared of? What are you fearing? Take that stuff on. Baby steps, one step at a time, but consistent. That's the key. Rather you, for example, if we talked about, uh, let's just talk about losing weight since we're kind of on that thread anyway. Rather than trying to lose 50 pounds in the next 90 days, or 50 pounds in the next 90 days, that's kind of people do these challenges, right? Rather than doing that, how about losing 50 pounds in the next 12 months? And now that becomes a lifestyle change versus a fad, a temporary, because anyone can lose 50 pounds in 90 days. It's easy. It's much harder to lose it over a year because now you're going to keep it off. One is about getting it off and putting it back on. The other one is about keeping it off. Lifestyle change versus a diet or a challenge. Can you see? Very, very slight difference in approach, but it makes the absolute difference long term. So it's understanding that. Get to know yourself in a way that nobody else can know you. Only you know you. There's no coach, there's no mentor, there's no trainer, there's no book, there's no video, there's no audio that knows you better than you. You can use those as tools, but you ultimately hold the key. Own your power. Own who you are. If we talk about business, how many people procrastinate doing things in business? I'll make the phone call tomorrow. I'll create the leads next week. I'll learn how to do that next month. Why? You're only punishing yourself. You're just slowing your own journey down. It only hurts your pocket, nobody else's. The difference between people that make progress and the people that don't, action. Suzanne Jeffers wrote a book decades ago. It's another early one I read. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Fear doesn't disappear. You just get power over it or don't. Fear doesn't disappear. It's a part of our makeup. Fear is inside every human. It's just the level of fear that runs the show that is important. Not that fear is there. Fear is always there. But does fear run the show? Or Have you found mechanisms that allow you to overcome that fear and do it anyway? Feel the fear and do it anyway. Do what? Anyway, anything, anything and everything, whatever it is. Doesn't say ignore the fear. Doesn't say pretend the fear isn't there. It says feel it. Feel the fear. It's there. It's real. But when you feel it, you're present to it. When you're present, you're in power because now you can distinguish what's going on. Most people are not present. They don't distinguish stuff. They fight through stuff in the moment, moment by moment. They're just fighting. Everything is just a fight. And when you're always fighting, you end up tired, worn out, burnt out, twisted, thrown in the bin. Life's not supposed to be a fight. It's not supposed to be a struggle. But that's how most people handle it because they don't take the time to understand who they are and to get in touch with the fact that they are more powerful than they will ever give themselves credit for. You have whatever it takes inside of you to create miracles. You just do. By being human, that's the gift we have. The gift we have is that we are the miracle. And once you marry that, now you can start solving stuff in a space of power rather than fear. So overcoming your fear is a case of being present to whatever fears there are. Most people don't even know what fears that are running the show. If you're poor, there's a fear about being rich. If you're obese, there's a fear about being healthy. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, there's a fear about being in a healthy relationship. Just shift your perspective, flip the switch. Just understand there are more dimensions to your reality than the one that you're manifesting and experiencing. Always, always. The gift of being human. There are so many options, so many iterations, so many different versions of your life. It's infinite. But most get comfortable with one version and they just repeat that version till the end of their life, which is not necessary. If it's working for you, great. If you've, accidentally worked it out or purposefully worked it out, brilliant. But if you haven't, this is the journey you want to be on. Self-awareness, self-understanding, self-mastery. And it's never perfect. So the other danger always is that you start beating yourself up for not doing things that you know about. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to help anything. Don't beat yourself up. Right? It's already, if things aren't working, it's already tough anyway. You don't need to be your own enemy in those situations. Just acknowledge when something's not working. Be present to it and then apply yourself. What can you do proactively? Micro actions consistently over time. What improvements can you make to improve the outcomes? That's how it kind of, in terms of stacking the odds of you winning long term in your life overall, that's how you do that. Giving yourself a hard time, beating yourself up, belittling yourself, minimizing yourself, taking away from yourself does not do you any favors. It's more of the same. The key is to learn to empower yourself. Everybody disempowers themselves, which is why they're always paralyzed, procrastinating, and living in fear. It's easy to disempower yourself. It's a cop-out. Learning to empower yourself, speak yourself up, speak capability into yourself, that's the hardest journey to make. But once you've made it, miracles happen everywhere. You become radiant. You become attractive to people. Business is easier. Relationships are easier. Wellness is easier. Climbing the career is easier. Everything is easier. When you start loving yourself, being generous with yourself, and opening yourself up to your possibilities, your potential, your power, that's when life works for you rather than against you, right? So I'm going to open up because I'm passionate about this stuff, as you can see. I'm really keen to see if any of you have any questions around this, or if you've had a breakthrough or an insight, an awareness of some kind. If you want to share that, that would be awesome, because whenever you share stuff, it impacts everyone else that's here as well. So it's a journey together of people that are open-minded and keen to learn. So if you want to share, just raise your hand. Give me a little wave or a symbol or something, and then just unmute yourself. Who'd like to go first? Joel, of course. Hey, welcome. Go ahead and unmute yourself, buddy.
Hey, Caps. Always
Hey.
love your discussions of self-development, self-improvement, self looking into and really shaping ourselves to make the outer world really a mirror of what we are in the inner world. And, many of my self discoveries come through interactions with other people where you can, if you like, rerun the tape of the day at the end of the day to yourself. You really get to see what you could have done better. So the next time you're confronted with a challenge or a difficult situation, you're right. It's just a matter of just flicking the switch, or it's just mindset. And without lessons like this, I find the more we listen to them, I've listened to thousands of your courses. I've lost count, in fact, and I'll definitely say it's invaluable because you just don't know when it's going to be, when it's going to come into hand. You just really don't know. So I totally agree, Gouts. Being in these meetings every single week, if I know there's training and it's to do with mindset and self-improvement, I am not missing it simply because you just don't know when you're going to need that information. It could be the type of the piece that completes the whole puzzle in the journey of your life. You honestly just do not know. Life is difficult enough as it is. So the more we can strengthen our resolve with trainings like this, definitely is the better. So I'm really grateful. Thank you so much, Counts.
Really great what you shared there, Joel. One of the things that really just stood out as you said it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? It's that whole thing of you never know when it's going to come in handy. So oftentimes it's not even about what you're going through now, but it's about what you may be going through a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But if you got the training from now, then suddenly when that situation occurs, bang, you're ready rather than not ready, unprepared. And that's when it floors you. Life can floor. A lot of people get floored by life, right? But it's the preparation over time that the same thing happens. But when you're prepared, it's just not going to floor you as hard. You'll get up a little bit faster and be able to handle things a little bit better. So yeah, brilliant. Really, really valuable insight there. Thank you. All right. We have got Glitz. Hey, how we doing?
Hi, thank you. I've got my mug. I don't know if you can see it properly, or I
Ah,
have to remove the
oh, the
video.
mug. Oh, wow. Very,
No, you can't see what's written because of blood, man.
a
Blood,
little bit
my
blurry. Oh,
yeah, blood, my. Otherwise, it's written, don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try. Because we mentioned fear today. But this procrastination is what had been in my mind lately. Yeah. One thing I've got, it really sharpened me. What I listen I got from you today. Thank you very much. It's really sharpened me. And one thing that clicked into my head was atomic habits. The fact that it is not that's the last strike of the hammer that breaks that stone. Those
yes.
those those previous bands, however how many they were, they contributed. It is not the last one. We just have to be consistent, iron ourselves, pull ourselves together, improve ourselves, always put ourselves on the road we would like to move to, always adjusting, being on the way where we want to reach, and we will definitely reach there. And empower yourself, positivity, and surround yourself with people who like to go the same direction as you. Like right now, I'm really empowered today. I'm very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Touching on something you touched on there, I don't know if it's coming to me to say this, and it's something that I've said often as well, that how you created a situation is how you can also dissolve that situation. So when you take ownership, it's like For example, let's say that your weight doubled over 10 years. You did that. You knew how to do that. So if you know how to double it in 10 years, you also hold the keys to half it again. You know, so whatever your situation is that you're procrastinating on, the fear is false because you already know how you create the situation. You also know how you can uncreate that situation. So every situation holds the keys to unlock the next phase of your life. So beautiful. Thank you. Well done. Anyone else to hear from you? Feel free to jump in. Let's see. All right. I was going to see if I want to pick on anyone, but no, I'm not going to pick on anyone. I do that sometimes, but yeah, if you want to just share a little bit about, something you might have picked up or you want to share with the community, right? It's not even about that. Hey, Sal, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing wonderful. I was just in the midst of packing as I'm heading to an international trip in 2 days. But as my mind was on what you were saying, and regardless of what we're doing, it's very healthy to input this sort of greatness in to get the greatness out, especially those of us that are isolated. We tend to work online. I don't have coworkers per se around me. I don't have these sorts of influences other than these kinds of Zooms, which I really appreciate. It's not a pitch fest. It's not come do this and that. We can apply the wisdom that you've shared in whatever path that we're trying to achieve more in, whether it's in weight loss, whether it's in financial success. And so I really like the atmosphere of coming together on a weekly basis with other great minds that are working on their path to discover more of themselves and see the potential that they've been granted in this life. And it's rare to find such a community where it's not like, trying to just get something out of you, but pour into you. You've accomplished a lot. You've led by example. Even before we had a way of working together, I was curious about your story and what kind of mentality led to your amazing upcoming in this industry. And these little things matter as much as we might. These are the soft skills and the mentalities that make or break, because every comp plan can lead to great amounts of money, but why doesn't everyone rise through it? And it's this and all that I can say is these kinds of conversations lead us to go and do our own work, go and work on these aspects in private so that we can have more to contribute and the public accolades. So I think after this call ends, for me and those of us that are listening, it's what we do after this, where we take this wisdom and say, you know what, that was a very insightful thing that if I begin to start and one thing that I picked up, my mind went there, is just being conscious of how we use our time in the day. Even before we start to shift, like I need to do something else, just, there's like a 12-step program or something for like smokers to stop smoking. And I think the first step is just to be mindful of when you pull out that cigarette. Or our modern day cigarettes.
Yeah.
As we're in the middle of doing something productive, and then we just need something on our phone, and then it leads to distractions after distractions, and you forget, wait, why did I get on my phone? And so that sort of just not sliding down that path of distraction, by what I picked up for me was being conscious of, okay, what led me to that? And how could I do this differently next time? And then a few days of just observing, okay, I tend to, whenever I grab this, it takes me a lot longer. Let me find a way to be mindful as I'm on this very captivating device that seems to sink our time. So mindfulness, it was a big part of what I picked up from your conversation, but more than anything, it's just having a place to come back to on a weekly basis that I look forward to.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sal. Yeah, absolutely. That having a a peer group to share the journey makes a massive difference for sure. And that, again, weekly get-togethers sharpens the saw consistently over time. And I love the analogy of you know, cigarette. Right? And for me, as you say that, I'm like, yeah, what comes to mind is, and again, because I'm very mindful of stuff like that, right? That I often observe people. I'm like, is the device consuming you, or are you consuming the device? And that's the fine line, right? So when I go online, it's with purpose and intention only. So for example, I'll give some really quick examples. I start my day with listening to some comedy, funny stuff. So I'll go in, and because that's what I listen to, my feed already knows. So I'll just go into what's already waiting for me, and I'll spend 15, 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour, just cracking up at stuff that, at comedians, comedy, stuff like that, right? So I just do that. That gets me in a real kind of great, happy state. So intention. So I don't then end up just seeing, I'm not consuming what's there. I'm consuming what I want. Big difference. Other people are just mindlessly being consumed. It's like what's being given to them versus what they're taking from it. And just this little shift, again, with mindfulness, because it's easy otherwise to fall into watching stuff that adds zero value to your life. It's just information. Information is today, you can't even call it abundant. It's overload. There's so much information that unless you are clear and intentional about the greatness in, then 99% of what information is being presented is garbage in. And garbage in is
Yeah.
so yeah, mindfully navigating social media. It's massive. Most people haven't even got a clue what that looks like. Most people do not go on social media. So I go on for that, and I'll go on for when I make a post, when I want to post something of my own. So that's it. And then I'm like off that device and I'm done. The rest of it is all to do with, whatever else I'm dealing with, whether it's business related or, family related, whatever it might be. So yeah, very, very powerful. Thank you for that, Sal. Great, great tips. Anyone else? So look, thank you all for being here. And I really want you all to just feel like this is family, all right? Like Joel's like a regular face. Sal is becoming a regular face here. Glitz, thank you for coming on and putting your camera on. It takes courage, right? Oftentimes, it's easy to keep it in your head. It's easy to keep your thoughts and your processes to yourself, and that's cool as well, right? And most people will, and that's wonderful. But when you are able to share it openly and freely in an environment like this, without thinking, what are the other 20 something people thinking about what I just said? Are they judging me? What are they thinking about me? Do they like my cap? Do they like my scarf? Are they okay with my t-shirt? Whatever it might be, right? There's all that stuff that could be going on. And what I'm saying is, don't take for granted these people that come on, and whether they had that going on or not, probably not, because I know certainly I've known all three of these people for some time. They work on themselves, and so I'm not saying that was there, but sometimes that's the kind of stuff that stops us. What are others going to think? Do you know what? In this space, they're not going to think anything negative. And if they do, that's their stuff, right? Again, so even if they do, I'm not even going to say they're not going to think. They can think what they like. If somebody thinks negatively about you, that's their stuff. This is really for you to feel like there's a safe space where you can come, you can interact, you can converse, you can learn, you can grow, you can add value to others. I'm convinced that all three of these beautiful individuals have added value by coming and sharing. That's the power of sharing. That when you come and share, bang, 20 something other people get a light bulb moment, get an impact, get some more, get a perspective, they get a flavor. So I really love people that come in and come and share themselves with the community as well, because that's priceless. So I want to acknowledge all three of you for doing that today. And let's regroup again next week, same time. Well, not same time actually. The time might vary because it depends on my Saturday schedule, but this kind of time. Next Saturday we'll be back, and invite friends. It's just no, as Sal rightly mentioned, there's no selling here, there's no promoting here, there's no agenda other than to add value and to help people elevate, grow, learn, and become a better version of themselves and deal with whatever they're dealing with from an empowering state versus a disempowering state. So thank you, much love. Mwah. Take care. We'll see you.